Mass murders is the killing of 3 or more persons during an event, with no cooling-off period between the homicides. According to the Investigative Assistance for Violent Crimes Act of 2012, mass murder is the violent crime of killing a number of people, typically simultaneously or over a relatively short period of time and in close geographic proximity. A mass murderer, Joseph Edward Corcoran, was executed in Indiana on December 18, 2024. An inmate has not been executed in Indiana since December 11, 2009, when Matthew Eric Wrinkles died by lethal injection for the 1994 murders of his estranged wife, her sister and her brother-in-law. A total of 94 inmates have been executed by the state of Indiana dating back to 1897. With 2 occurring in different states and another being done by federal authorities, according to the Indiana Department of Corrections. Following Wrinkles, Indiana took a 15-year hiatus from executions until Republican Governor Eric Holcomb decided this year to resume them. Joseph Edward Corcoran, born on April 18, 1975, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Corcoran was found guilty on May 22, 1999, of murdering his older brother, 30-year-old James Corcoran, his sister's fiancé, 32-year-old Robert Scott Turner, and their 2 other friends, 30-year-old Douglas Stillwell and 30-year-old Timothy Bricker. 4 days short of reaching his 17th birthday, on April 14, 1992, Joseph Corcoran murdered his parents, 53-year-old Jack Corcoran and 47-year-old Catherine Corcoran. Corcoran's parents were found dead inside their Ball Lake home at Steuben County, Indiana, sustaining gunshot wounds caused by a shotgun. On November 16, 1992, after a 5-day trial, Corcoran was acquitted after the jury found insufficient evidence to convict him of the murders of his parents. Joseph Edward Corcoran was relieved with the acquittal and wanted to complete high school and join the Marines like his father. The case remains unsolved, even though it remains open for routine re-investigations. The jurors on the trial of the murder of his parents were convinced that Corcoran was guilty to an extent for planning or committing the murders of his parents. They were unable to decide on his guilt given the evidence all being circumstantial and an absence of direct witnesses and murder weapons, which made them opt for a verdict of not guilty. Only 1 juror voted Corcoran guilty in spite of the majority opinion. 5 years after his acquittal, Corcoran, who never completed his high school education, went to live with his siblings, who helped him find various odd jobs, including a cook and also dishwasher. On July 26, 1997, 5 years after allegedly killing his parents, Joseph Corcoran committed the quadruple murder of his brother and 3 other men. On July 26, 1997, a 22-year-old Corcoran was lying down on his bedroom floor in the Fort Wayne, Indiana home he lived in with James Corcoran and his older sister, Kelly Ernst. Corcoran was inside his house in Fort Wayne, Indiana with his 30-year-old brother James Corcoran. They shared the house with their sister Kelly Neto and her 32-year-old fiancé Robert Scott Turner. Friends 30-year-old Timothy G. Bricker and 30-year-old Douglas A. Stillwell were also inside the house that day. Corcoran's sister was absent from home and at a nearby store at that time. An enraged Corcoran grabbed a semi-automatic rifle, went down the stairs and confronted the 4 men before shooting them at close range, according to the court filing. Stillwell attempted to escape the home, but Corcoran chased him into the kitchen and shot him in the head. Corcoran was under stress at that time because he was being forced to move out of the Fort Wayne home he lived in with his sister, Kelly Ernst, who was about to get married to Turner. Jim Corcoran had also told his younger brother that he could not move in with him once he moved out of the Fort Wayne home. While initially Corcoran only appeared to be a frustrated brother who didn't want to leave his sister's house, more information about his mental state came to light in 1999 when two doctors diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia during his pre-sentencing memorandum. After murdering the four men, Corcoran stepped out of the house and asked a neighbor to call the police. When the police arrived, they found the bodies of the four men, and found Corcoran's niece unharmed inside her bedroom. Authorities also discovered about 20 to 30 weapons inside the attic of Corcoran's house. Corcoran's paranoid schizophrenia removes him from reality. Corcoran's other attorneys says, Corcoran cannot distinguish between reality and his delusions and hallucinations. They are his reality. And because his reality is informed by his delusions and hallucinations, he is incapable of rational thought. On July 28, 1997, 2 days after the Fort Wayne murders, 22-year-old Joseph Corcoran was arraigned in court on 4 counts of murder, 1 for each of his victims. The offense of murder with aggravating circumstances carries the death penalty or life in prison under Indiana state law. Corcoran eventually stood trial before a jury at the Allen County Superior Court. Corcoran's defense counsel John Nimmo expressed the belief that Corcoran was guilty before the start of trial. On May 22, 1999, Corcoran was found guilty of murder on all 4 counts. The jury returned with their verdict 2 days later, unanimously recommending Corcoran receive 4 death sentences for all the 4 killings. Corcoran was sentenced to death for all 4 counts of murder by Allen County Superior Judge Franco on August 26, 1999. Joseph Corcoran spent more than 2 decades on death row at Indiana State Prison while his appeals against the death penalty, which had been vacated more than once before its reinstatement, were ongoing. At the time of Corcoran's sentencing in 1999, 45 death row inmates were on death row at Indiana State Prison. Since then, 14 inmates had been executed between 1999 and 2009, before Corcoran himself was put to death in 2024. On December 18, 2024, at the age of 49, Joseph Edward Corcoran was executed. Before Corcoran's execution, his attorneys filed a request at the Indiana Supreme Court asking them to consider his client's competency due to his paranoid schizophrenia diagnosis in 1999. The court denied the attorney's request on December 5, 2024. Corcoran requested ice cream from Ben & Jerry's for his last meal. Corcoran was granted a final meeting with his family, including his wife Tahina, whom he married while in prison. Corcoran's last words were not really, "Let's get this over with." The process started just after midnight Central Standard Time, and Corcoran was pronounced dead at 12:44 a.m., according to the Indiana Department of Correction. Media were not permitted to attend the execution. The blinds for the window were raised at 12:34 a.m. Corcoran was still and silent, with his eyes blinking. It's unclear when exactly the drug pentobarbital was administered into Corcoran's arm through an IV line, but the Chronicle reported that his left hand and fingers moved briefly at 12:37 am. The blinds were closed at 12:40 a.m., and Corcoran was pronounced dead at 12:44 a.m. The process, from the moment witnesses were allowed to see the execution chamber to Corcoran's death, lasted 10 minutes. Thank you for watching Death Row.